Welcome back to Worth the Effort Woodworking, and what I hope is going to be a fun little 10-year retrospective. I'm actually calling it 10 plus years because there's kind of a little bit of a discrepancy. If you go to my About page, it shows that I joined, Worth Effort joined YouTube, summer of 2011, and I uploaded my first video in September of 2011, making this month my 10-year anniversary. But if you also look at those dates, you'll notice that my first 6 videos were uploaded on the same day. And over the next week, another 6 videos were uploaded. And over the next month, there's a little bit of a issue back in the Wild West, the original, where a lot of us content creators were getting our content stolen left and right. Well, I actually had somebody steal a lot of my content and then put a trademark infringement with YouTube on my channel, which brought it down for a few weeks, and they've all brought it back out, and that happened around 2011. A lot of my files for my first videos were actually way back in 2010, and a lot of the events that I documented were 2010. So actually, I think my channel is really almost 12 years old, but officially, according to YouTube, we are now at my 10th year. Long story. Anyways, I went through all my videos, or most of my videos from the very beginning forward, and I tried to pull a little 10, 15, 20-second snippets of information that I think you might enjoy. Along the way, you get to laugh at me, because those very first videos were shot in the corner of an apartment, and I have gone through 8 different shops between then and ending up in this place right here. You can see the progression out there, and I pulled out 2 videos which were a little bit longer than 30 seconds to do shop tours along the way. And in case you don't know the story for Worth Effort, originally when I started the channel, my hobby was woodworking. I was teaching technology. They asked me to teach a video course the next year, so I just wanted to brush up my skills, so I just started a little woodworking hobby channel. Also, the fact that I was thinking about that Christmas break about buying a school bus and spending the springtime renovating it, putting workbenches, dust collection stuff in there, and having a mobile woodworking school that I could take around to old folks' homes, Boy Scout homes, that kind of stuff, and teach, have a roving carnival tent of a school for my summer breaks. Layoffs happened. I went through a couple teaching hiring cycles. Nothing happened. And this was just kind of a way for me to stay relevant and scratch that teaching itch during that time period. I also, after I went through a few teaching hiring seasons, I decided to open up my own woodworking school. And I tried that at 2 different locations. At that point in time, you saw a market shift that this became marketing more for the education side. When the second one closed down, it just was a way for me to stay relevant and scratch that teaching itch. And at that point in time, I had started making a little bit of income from the channel. It started out about 5% of my total income. And it eventually, right before COVID, it was about half my income. The rest of my income came from me working art markets, farmers markets, and writing assignments, that kind of stuff. And once COVID hit, even though it was only 50% of my market, I stopped doing all art markets, and it's been my full-time income ever since. And I managed to squeeze by for the simple reason, not traveling and making all the art supplies and stuff like that, my expenses just went way down, and I'm actually doing a little bit better, even though my income is less. And COVID, I've actually done pretty good. I've had a few videos that have gone somewhat viral. But getting back to the videos you're about to watch, have fun watching them. You can see the progression of technology. As I originally started out for a lot of years working with the flip style cameras, if you remember those. I progressed up to a little video camera. Eventually I went up to a DSLR, and for a long time I was pretty much on an iPhone full time. I'm now on my second DSLR. I've also upgraded to mics, and we've integrated in a GoPro along with my iPhone. And that kind of rounds out the mix of the videos I've been producing these past few years. So, feel free to laugh all you want at how the technology has grown, how the shop has grown, and how I've gotten shorter, wider, and a lot grayer. Enjoy. Hi guys, I thought I'd try something a little different today. I do a lot of little experiments that don't take but maybe a day or two to figure stuff out. and I want to start sharing a few of them.
And most importantly, I went and bought me a new fire extinguisher because I'm doing this in my apartment. Danger, 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 Will Robinson. Fire extinguisher.
Then there was the infamous Trindle lathe. I just had to try it out. And let me tell you, you had to pedal backwards on it. I have a feeling somebody's supposed to be on the other side doing the pedaling while you do the turning.
There are a lot of opinions out on the internet on what the best first tool would be for a home craftsman. Almost everybody out there is going to tell you a table saw is the best one to buy for your first major purchase. I'm going to sit here and say it's total hogwash.
But I warn you, after a half decade or so of this kind of abuse, they might start acting up a little. Might take a little more effort getting them through their job. Unfortunately, learning and gaining skill does not occur through osmosis. Practicing an activity over and over with the goal each time of doing it better is the best way to learn. And practicing the basics well first so that its execution is second nature is the best way to create a strong foundation to build upon. Eesh, woodworking all of a sudden sounding a lot like a sport.
Learning occurs in steps or stages, and when learning something new on your own, which is how most of us online learners gain information, it can be quite frustrating.
And one of the key things I'd like to stress on this is something anybody can do. And you're basically going to be applying principles that you've learned everywhere else in life, from elementary school through high school. And specifically, you guys have already worked with wood long enough to know how wood's going to react. All you have to do is learn to transfer that knowledge to wood turning, and it will be a really fun side aspect to your hobby.
The warehouse we found was the distribution warehouse for all of Central Texas grocery stores at the turn of the 1900s. Its cracked walls, uneven floors, poor electricals, and leaking roof were evidence of its history, age, and heavy use. But it was close to where I'd eventually like to be, had full walls, a door, and air conditioning. On my budget, I didn't think I could get much better. We moved in June, and Dad and I immediately started repairing the brick block structure, installing interior walls, spackling, painting, sanding the concrete, and doing electrical. Since the first classes were to start in July, it was a mad dash to then build the benches and appliances needed. Then every few weeks, I'd finish another bench, acquire another tool, develop more curriculum, and mark it. Our self-imposed deadline for being able to effectively serve 12 students in a classroom was Christopher Schwarz's Dutch tool chest in November. Over that time, we experimented with different class structures, course offerings, free events, advertising, and the like, while continuing a practice begun a year earlier of working farmers markets, artist markets, fairs, hand-tool events, and even street corners to demonstrate and promote woodworking, build a client mailing list, and sell some small items we've made to help support the school.
Okay, this time I go take the saw down to the baseline. I put extreme pressure sideways. Let the teeth of the saw kind of form a little ledge. And now as I rotate it over, my pressure is straight up and then just straight across on the baseline. I know the dovetail is the most overrated joint in woodworking, and the Morrison 10 is the most underrated. Then I've got to believe that the groove has to be the most underappreciated. And the third law is all about telekinetic power. So everyone focus, turn backwards. Whoa. Brain power. Newton's third law of motion.
Collector, when it only take you about a minute to cut the work, and you'll get the slightest of workout. Seriously, you don't get a figure like mine by doing a lot of heavy workout. Why would I want to eliminate just a little bit of work?
Because zombies, they don't get taller the more they eat. They just get wider. Kind of like the creatures they came from. These zombies I talk about, trees. You have dead corpses of trees in your house everywhere. All your kitchen cabinets, the chair you're sitting in, it's the rotting corpse of a tree. And believe it or not, that tree is moving to this day.
It might have been killed 100 years ago, but it is still moving. It is still eating. Zombies.
Let's talk about designing and making our own personal mallets. Oh crap. Now, real quickly, we're going to be using a chisel in this little exercise. And I need y'all to understand something. This is probably the most dangerous tool in an entire woodworking shop. People saying safety is first is somewhat of a lie. Because everywhere you go, you see that, they have some risk involved. I would love for somebody to walk up to a soldier and say safety is first. When in reality, they have a job to do. And that job comes first. Because whenever I'm using the bowl gouge, I'm really not pressing very hard. I'm finding this balance point where the cutting edge is kind of pushing the blade into the gouge into the wood, where the bevel is pushing back. And when you find that balance, sometimes you get a little bit too aggressive and the bevel just kind of pushes itself and it crushes the fibers behind it.
You walk in, the school is only about a little over 1,000 square feet, but when you have, 6 workbenches and all the students, it can get kind of crowded. I go ahead and shove all the workbenches to the side when I'm in production mode, simply to get them out of the way and give me a little bit more room. And as you can see, it's not that big. But there you go. Coming over. A lot of people have commented on my storage system. Once again, I was kind of broke when I set this place up, so I just used 2x4s, and I probably have maybe $250 into each one of these entire storage walls. They go up to a 12-foot ceiling. But this allows me to put all my power tools, with the exception of this lathe and this bandsaw right here. All the power tools I use would be typically what a home DIYer would have. All those go behind the curtains. And the sections are custom sized so that I can roll things where they need to be. And in here you see more of the projects that my students have do in class. And we have our little art gallery, which has been totally decimated because just recently we got 3 different galleries to host our stuff. So most of our stuff that is there. And basically I just put stuff in here until we do our monthly trip to all the art galleries. Now, a lot of people never believe this, but yes, I live in my school. All these people with little micro homes, well, here you go. 75 square feet of living space. We have my office, my entertainment center, my pantry, my storage, a shower, kitchen, all that kind of works. Small bedroom, closet. Yep, saves money to be able to live in your school.
There's an easier way to adjust this tool and all other tools that use some kind of a screw to just tighten down the fence or anything like that. Let me show you how to do it. So if I know I'm going to be doing a lot of chopping and stuff like that, I might real quickly just go to the stones with my chisel, whatever chisel I'm using, find my angle by going click, 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 and then I will lift it up just a degree or two so that only the tip is touching and just give it a few strokes. And that way I'm increasing the angle of this chisel without removing that much metal, and next time I go sharpening, it will bring it back down to my original angle. So for our second to last exercise, we are going to do a through mortise all the way through this board, which means we're going to have to make the layouts perfect on both sides, because we are going to be using the rule of halves, coming halfway in from each side so that we can get a good, nice, crisp entrance to our joint from both ends. So here's the challenge. Build one table out of one board in one day. And here's the new place. We're about 45 miles outside Austin, near Bastrop, Texas. Just out in the middle of the country, so rent's a lot cheaper and utilities are a lot cheaper too. Let me give you a tour. Well, using this device for those first cuts on that very first project they have, I don't have to explain a whole lot because the device itself will reinforce what I talk about. Much is if I want to pull a tool right here, I can just drill a hole. Basically, I square it up and then I lift it ever so slightly, drill my hole. I have some dowels. I use dowels for this one instead of splitting it out, just because it's not holding that much weight, and dowels are good enough. And you just tap it into the hole, and then you can hang your tool. If you want to reorganize it, instead of having a bunch of holes, just cut it off, drill a new hole, put it somewhere else. And you don't want to be turning end grain with this one, because if it catches and grabs, it will either bend or break at that thing, spin around, stick in your neck, and you'll bleed to death.
There it goes.
And there you go. From a tree to a bowl in a day. Now, I think that'll do it. See? My opinion is today we've transmogrified Nakashima's ideas under the guise that if a little of something is good, then a lot of it must be better. Okay, right when you walk into this place, you are basically at my photography area. This is actually the first table I ever worked on, and it's where I answer all my emails and stuff because I'm in a metal warehouse. It's about 800 square feet, but only about 450 of it is usable for woodworking. But squealing like a girl and doing bad dance moves will prevent a drop chisel from bouncing off the ground and into your femoral artery. Y'all notice something familiar in my t-shirt? You can tell a person who's really thought through his project versus one who's just trying to get it done. The grain will now match all the way around the board. And when you lay it on, that first coat is going to freak you out. Every single muscle in your body, from down to your toes, your calves, your necks, your core, your back, your quads, your lats, everything, just so that you can pound that thing all the way through the fairway. Kids, don't play golf in the house. Talking about the basics of how to set up tents, working with displays, how to getting customers into your booth and sticking around and spending more money. What I found is that a lot of times when you change subject matter, even though the terminology changes, a lot of the theories behind those terms maintain the same. Action. So on the inside of the freezer, even though the door is closed, it will be circulating the air, getting lots of movement and causing the stuff to dry evenly.
To your spouse, that $90 chisel looks exactly like the $9 chisel. I'll just leave that intellectual nugget right there.
Here you go. We made some Halloween pendants. Pretty cool. I think the best out of this batch was this little cat one. There's no reason why you can't create that really nice crisp line point and then come back in and see if you can't ever so slightly flatten it out so it's nice and crisp. Dad, wait, what are you doing? You're making a cone and the cone's gotta go in the middle. We gotta get two of these in here. We're mass producing this craft. We gotta get this.
This is my piece. It's art.
But
and I don't want
I could get two $25 trees out of this thing. Put a 10 on this.
But I can get one nice piece for 75 to 100. Give me a break. Get out of here.
I'm taking my stuff to my shop.
Well, take your stuff to your shop. I'll still stay here working, making art. Goodbye.
Yeah. But what makes this Gramercy so cool is I want you to notice the gap. Right now it is tightened up so it's even. But as you loosen it up, they've actually bent these steel plates so that they squeeze on the outside before they squeeze in on the middle. And that gives you a lot of very even pressure all the way across. Okay, step one should probably be to turn on the clock. Okay, it's going. Oh, turn on the lathe. Ah, find your tools. Ah. Should have been more organized. Okay, here we go. Make a big mess.
They're just stupid. They're like the employee that you just can't send off to do a task. You got to monitor them the whole time. But every CNC woodworker will tell you, you get a better finish when you're doing what they call a climb cut, that more dangerous cut.
But despite all that knowledge, prep work, education, training, design work, artistic work, there's one simple thing about machines like that that really brings me back to simple knives, over and over and over. Hand tools, the least amount of education you need to make a lot of stuff most times. And that's simply this. That machine, I'm limited to that 60-degree bit. And while basic training has you holding the knives right at 60 degrees to make most of your cut, there are opportunities here where I can drop it down to about 33 degrees or 30 degrees, bring it back up to 90 degrees.
Notice because I set the fence up so I could cut on the far side instead of the near side, that allowed me room that I could cut down the middle in order to remove the waste and simply curve it a little bit to cut out each side. Flip it, you cut out the other side, and in essence, I'm using the bandsaw just as I would a coping saw and the hand tool roll to get rid of the majority of the waste so I could then chisel it down to the baseline and get a perfect interior face.
We stack the lumber as high as we can to put as much weight as possible, so the material on the bottom will dry really flat. Even with that, sometimes we have boards cupped that are on the very bottom layer.
So a stack that tall is still going to sometimes cup on you?
Occasionally, it doesn't happen very often, but every now and then you have an individual board that I think you could put the world on top of and it would still cup. Just the power of wood.
You have a through dovetail. You have a half line dovetail. You can even do a full blind dovetail, a miter dovetail, a full blind miter dovetail. They even have starburst dovetails. You can do sliding dovetails. And if you are a fan of Roy Underhill, they even have the impossible dovetail. Use a metal mallet whenever I'm hammering dovetails together because it gives you a little different sound if it's too tight. Action might be a tad bit too tight, so let's check it out. I want you to look at where the tool is touching the tool rest. It's right at the bottom of that gullet. Can y'all see that? That is the only point of the tool that is actually supported on the tool rest. If I were to press down on this wing over here, as if I was touching, cutting on this little corner right there, it wants to rotate around. Same thing on the other side. It wants to rotate. But if I press down right in the middle, it's completely stable. We're going to talk about the difference between bevel down and bevel up hand planes. One of them's blade is upside down. The wood doesn't care. If that is set to a flat 90 degrees, well then I know that this angle right here is 10 degrees minus 90, so there we go. I can mark that out as 80 degrees. Fairly simple to come back to. So while I can look at the visuals right here, I can add notes and stuff like that for the entire design build. Now when they make a set of jaws, they actually make it out of a solid blank so that they are all going to be very concentric. And then they saw them apart. So in order to get the perfect circle, you actually do have to have a little bit of space in between them. If you look at this bow dart, it is not straight with the sides. I mean, this was chainsawed out. The grain is running kind of this direction. So my first step is to go to the bandsaw and square that up so that the grain will be running straight through it. But however I do it, I've now got as balanced a grain pattern as I can get on my blank. And a lot of times when this kind of situation happens, I'm going to make a cut right in the middle
then maybe cut off the end, and get 2 bolt blanks from one side of the tree and nothing on the other side of the tree. It's just how the pith is within the blank. You want
I don't know that. So do not I need to give credit to Jimmy Clues for all the artistic elements I'm bringing into sculptures, bowls, and woodwork?
Get it spinning nice. I engage it, the wing below 90 degrees, so it's a negative angle. I come over. There we go. Now look at those cells. Can you see the holes in them? You show it to the kids. Can you see the little holes? And they'll go, yeah, because, I mean, you can literally see the holes in between them. Well, what you're looking at is just a bunch of calamari that are kind of stuck together side by side. There's not much holding them together. So you want to see a magic trick? Put them in your palm. Okay, here we go. If you put one hand on top of it and just rotate your hand, guess what happens? You're separating all those little cells. There's not much holding it together. And it's gone. And all you have is this little fine powdery dust. There are 4 main categories of cuts in our turning world. And the moment you understand their concepts, not only is the result you're going to get off the lathe going to dramatically improve, but your enjoyment of the craft will just explode. And those are basically understanding the planing, peeling, slicing, and scraping that you can do with just about any edge. It all comes down to understanding the interaction between edges and grain. There might be a little bit of difference every time you move it as far as angle-wise, and that's just kind of the nature of this clamping from 2 directions on most woodworking machines. Because people have said comment-wise that, you know, the miter gauges that come on these saws aren't the greatest out there. They're adequate, will serve your needs, but they're kind of finicky. I have been following this guy. He makes these out of his garage. It's miter set, and it allows you to set up miter gauges based off pins for high accuracy and repeatability. Even though I'm trying to do these fast, one of the things that really impresses people is when the grain aligns up.
Museum quality pieces. It's rather impressive when you walk in.
Whereas this board right here, it might be super, super clean, which is why I got it. But notice the cathedrals, they start here, but they're reversing right here. And then they reverse again over here. So this board right here was cut fairly parallel because the grain's kind of doing this action right there. So my opinion is this board right here will probably turn out my best board because it was sawn parallel with the pith. Shop builds like this combination router table, outfeed table for my table saw, they are our learning opportunities. And yes, it is total overkill if all I'm wanting to do is make something that will last me for 4 or 5 years. I'm using techniques here, practicing techniques here for furniture builds that would last generations. Again, overkill for the desired job of just throwing it in your shop and abusing it. But where better
the opportunity to learn, to experiment, to fail, to make mistakes, to test design theories, design applications, then in projects that don't really matter. I mean, even if I didn't have the tightest of joineries here, it would have been a perfectly functional router table for my shop. But the thing is, by putting a little extra time, this might have taken me maybe twice as long as building just the more traditional router table, you know, just plywood box, pocket hold, rabbited, dado, glued, screwed together. I mean, but I've now got experience. I've now got a lot more practice. I've learned techniques, tips, and tricks that I can apply elsewhere. They are in my mind. So that when I start building the stuff I want to be proud about for my family, friends, or even to sell, I have this skill set, this learning opportunity to draw upon. I mean, if all you're doing is making IKEA clones for your shop, when the time comes to make the important stuff, all the experience you have to draw upon is making IKEA clones. I mean, it's creating a nice shoulder on the sides too. I mean, you can peel those shavings off. They're like little Frito chips. But look at the sides. They're fairly straight. And we got quite a bit of work done there with just our hand pressure. Now let's do the same exact thing, except this time go to the side of the board. Pressing in. Oh, what's that? A little twist and it pops off. It's a super clean cut, right? I mean, that's almost joinery ready. It's just getting work done. That's so pretty. I mean, yeah. Big comparison between this and that. Hear it? It's loose. Why would I do it loose? Well, we have a cross grain action where this board, the tree, is growing this way. This one was the width of the tree, so I had to incorporate some movement. So I put it in a groove so it is panel design. The way we build is because of the material we build with. Even if you don't intend to buy materials and you have access to a hardwood dealer that would let you kind of look through their warehouse, which is kind of rare nowadays, go by sometime, walk through, maybe ask a question or two. They understand that you're new and you could become a lifetime customer of theirs. And if you have your very first project, bring in your plans, talk to them, ask them, hey, would it be better to use plywood for this tabletop, maybe trim it out. They have the experience and knowledge to give you good quality advice, and they can tell you why certain things might cost more, but in the end, save you money in the processing you can avoid or the errors that'll come out. I assume my measurements were off, an error. But if all four pieces are exactly the same error, it won't matter. If you have one that's a half inch one way, one that's it gets harder to deal with those errors. A simple yardstick clamped to the edge of the board. I now have something I can rest the board against to plane. I can push on this pretty hard. It works pretty well as a mechanism to be able to work on the face. In building this toolbox, which is going to house all the tools we will use in the series with the exception of the bandsaw. And we are going to be focusing on what I feel is probably the most important joint in all of woodworking, the mortise and tenon joint. And it might very well be the oldest joint in the woodworking, because I know that they've been talking about sticking poles in holes since the Adam and Eve day. And these... Now to drop the other side on. And within about an hour, they had this thing entirely filled with concrete.
So if I subtract 3/4 from that,
No, you add it.
3/4 would be
1.5 inches.
12/16.
Measurement there, plus a measurement there.
22 and 7/16. No,
No,
12 and 7/16.
no. 22 divided in half is not 12.
Together I get 24 and 7/8.
Okay,
12 and 7/16.
that sounds right.
How about we go out and check out the new shop? Yeah, despite being a solid completion date at the end of August, then September, then October, then November, and then most definitely by Thanksgiving, December 1st, they're still finishing it up. But hey, what can you do? All my stuff is out in the open until they finish up, though I did get permission to put at least the tools inside. Come on, let's check it out. So in the last 2 days, we have put all this stuff in here, and Dad had started painting the shop area. I'm about to push everything over to one side and then paint this side, then bring it all back over and paint that side, and probably want to put 2 more coats on everything. Now I call that a safety rail because whenever I put the legs for the tall shelving, I wanted those to anchor against the wall and not be able to pull off. And there we go. We got most of Dad's stuff up. He's about to put all the shelves up. He's cutting out a little socket for his plug. But now, I'm going to go buy more lumber and do the exact same side on that side, because that's the last of the lumber from the old shop. So we've got to go pay 2-3 times the price to get new stuff in. But that's COVID for you. There's one flaw in my design, and because of that, at the end, I did go over and put 2 screws underneath each little batten right here, just to be sure that they don't move.
Come on, I'm tired of waiting on you. Just go away. I got a better idea. You're just doing quick, taking way too long.
Just take the jigsaw and go in slow. And it's done.
Fine tune, that's perfect now.
Okay.
If it's perfect, remeasure it. That's all.
Okay.
191 and 7 3/4.
No, go back and measure it again. I screwed up. I was fucking you over again.
So come along and let's take a quick look. Now, as we walk in is something fairly familiar if you've seen any of my videos. You know, my standard workbench and the tool wall. But that doesn't mean that I don't have a lot of things to do here, which is going to give me a lot of opportunities of videos to make. Now, opposite my workbench are my stationary power tools. Working our way over, we have a giant slop sink and then the bandsaw. And that kind of is the dividing line between a lot of the turning stuff and Dad's stuff and my stuff. Which brings us out to a storage hallway. Now originally this idea was this was just going to be like a porch with the overhang where we could just store some rough lumber and stuff like that. But then we realized it wouldn't be that much money to go ahead and enclose it and just make it a nice storage room. The key thing though, the big thing is the storage system I built behind us. We have basically a 25-foot hallway, about 8 feet across. On this side I built the storage system I did the video on. Right here we have our art market supplies, or what will be when this place gets organized. And I built a little desk right here so I could work on my chainsaws and stuff right like that. Right. Do your research on the quality of the steel. Put a priority on the steel and not the handle. But when you're first starting out, maybe the luxury of already having a handle on it is worth it. For a finish, I generally take a little bit of oil. I kind of like Mahoney's oil, which is a walnut oil. And I'm not going to coat it. I'm not even going to let it soak in very much. I'll just put it a little dropper on a rag or something like that. And then turning it by hand, I'll just lightly put it on. And I do this just mainly for the color. I like the oil finish color that comes out. Here, because the fittings are so tight, all you're going to be doing is spreading the glue down this face, which would be kind of ugly. So the thing to do is to use blue tape.
Sean, size really matters.
Then the next board I cut an opposite dovetail, and it will slide up underneath and give me a good join between the two sections. Yes, it might be soft, but when you dent it in. You don't dent it out. So if I were to dent it right here, I basically just compress those fibers in. I can still take a straight edge, lay it on its side, and move it smoothly across my workbench.
Oh wait, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but I mentioned that there was 3 things that plants need. They need soil, water, and sun. But if you live in a super hot climate like Sean does, you want to make sure that your plants can get some afternoon shade. So where you put your garden becomes very important, especially...
Now you tell me?
If y'all like this, then check back every now and then to see my latest experiment. Y'all be safe and have fun. And please remember, it's always worth the effort to learn, create, and share with others.